to Zero to Hero Become an AI ProPilot mentorship. We are thrilled to have you on board as we embark on this exciting 8-week journey to unlock the true potential of AI. Throughout this program, you will gain hands-on experience and in-depth knowledge integrating Microsoft Copilots seamlessly into your workflow to boost work quality and efficiency. By the end of this mentorship, you will be equipped with cutting-edge AI tools to boost your productivity and innovation. We are excited to see how you use these tools to transform your daily work, and we are excited to prepare you for the future with AI. Join us. This is lesson 4 of the Zero to Hero Become an AI ProPilot mentorship. Last week we had MVP Gita giving an introduction on Copilot Studio. This week we have Daniel Christian, the one and only. Daniel has been talking about Copilots for the last little while, and I thought it would be great for him to give us a deep dive in Copilot Studio. If you're joining us for the first time, you can access from zerotoheroes.com/ProPilots. All references to the previous lessons are available there. The slide decks, links to videos, so on and so forth, everything is available there and you can catch up. So for today, we are deep diving into Copilot Studio with MVP and my dear friend, Daniel Christian. The floor is yours. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you. All right, mic check is good. Let me just get slides over here so I can see what's going on. Cool. Yeah, so, thank you everybody for attending. My name's Daniel Christian. I'm a Microsoft MVP and a certified trainer, and I have been working with Copilot Studio before it was even famous back in the day. It was Power Virtual Agents, and then before that, there were earlier versions of it. There was Q&A was there. There was a Q&A per question and answer, very, very lightweight version of that. LUIS, LUIS, Language Understanding Information Service. So like I've actually seen it progress, and in the back end, there are still Q&A and LUIS is being used, but man, it has evolved big time. And now that it's Copilot Studio, everybody's interested in it because before nobody had any interest in that. And I was at our MVP summit. I was talking to the Microsoft product people. It was like, how many of us were interested in Power Virtual Agents? I mean, in like when it was still when Copilot Studio and it was still Power Virtual Agents. He says there was a handful, and all of you guys are over here. But now the whole thing has changed. Like the game has changed. So what I want to talk about today, specifically in this session, is this. Like, let's do, the agenda is let's talk about Copilot Studio just a little bit to make sure we're all on the same page. But then I also want to focus into the concept of generative AI, AI is for artificial intelligence, because that is the core of Copilot Studio. And there's some important terminologies I want to make sure we're all on the same page. And then we jump into some types of scenarios, because it's come to also that point where you've got a lot of options on how you build these Copilot Studios. So I want to show you some scenarios. That way you can plan accordingly how to build your Copilot Studio. Because that's one of the common questions both Microsoft and I've been getting is like, you've got these tools, when do I use what? So it's very important that we go through these scenarios. I'll also show you some options to simplify the agent creation based on some of these new tools. And then as of yesterday, there was some Ignite announcement that I want to talk about, 2 of them. So just, hot off the press, just heard that yesterday. And since I'm here, I want to share that intel with you as well. So let's go and get started. And the first thing I want to just talk about is Copilot Studio. You will start to see the term agent. So start changing that terminology a little bit. We always used to talk about it as chat bots. Then it became Copilot, and now it is still Copilot. Copilot Studio is still there, but the building of the chat bot is now an agent. So that's why, it says your agent, your way. So just end-to-end solution. But what is the Copilot Studio? Again, it is an end-to-end conversation using AI, and there's more to that. But you can go ahead and build it in a very simple way, an absolute no-code way using Microsoft 365 Copilot, which I'll demonstrate to you. But then you can also go into like because I'm using the 365 Copilot is absolutely no code, and I'll show that to you. But then there's the option of doing from a no to like a low to intermediate. That's where Copilot Studio comes in because you've got so much flexibility. And even over here in Copilot Studio, you've got options. So it is your way to build an agent, but specifically Copilot Studio, like specifically Copilot Studio, you've got flexibility to customize it very well. And so that's the focus over here is to kind of deep dive. I'll still give you a little information if you're brand spanking new in Copilot. I'll show you some stuff, but I want to deep dive into like the real fun piece of it. So this was actually a slide which was shown in yesterday's Ignite session, and I liked it. So I wanted to display that over here as well because you've got flexibility to do rapid creation and rapid authoring, which is intuitive multi-model authoring. The infrastructure piece is already provided. There is also some pre-built defaults, and I'll talk a little bit about that. But then you can go on to these other extreme pieces as well. You can scale up as fast as you want. And now there's a new license plan for that as well, which I'll talk to you in a minute. And then there's also options where you can have completely bot-centric or the Copilot-centric, sorry, agent-centric conversation, or you can have the conversation between the humans and the bot and the Copilot agent. So this was a good slide which was there. All right, I had to put this slide up over here. I kind of briefly already mentioned before. There was some terminology changes. So we used to call it as chatbots before. That terminology changed into Copilot. Now, Copilot still exists because Copilot is what we are using, but through Copilot, you create an agent now. So get that terminology right. And Microsoft has updated all their documentations, all their websites really fast. Ignite, that's all they kept hearing about was agents, and both on the Microsoft Power Platform side and also on the M365 side, like agents are there everywhere, and that's the terminology. So just wanted to call that out. All right. This is another information about the Copilot piece and the agent piece, because you use the agents to build a Copilot, but what is the difference? So Copilot is, every employee can and will have a Copilot. You already do on the Microsoft 365 side, but every department or business can also go ahead and have, building of an agent side. Your Copilot is more for a personal process, while building the agent through Copilot Studio, it gets more tied to either business side or even a low code version for a small business, small, medium, large type of a scenario. So I like that the Copilot on the left, the UI for AI, and I don't know if any of you watched the Ignite sessions. I kept hearing that again and again. The UI for AI, UI for AI. Satya himself mentioned that in the keynote as well. So it's Copilot is that the UI for AI. Agents, Copilot Studio agents is the flexibility to go ahead and extend that, where you can now build it the way you want it. And in addition, and you can look at the last line on the bottom right, is you can do it as a user interface where the user triggers it, or it can be autonomous. And the autonomous is the new piece, which I also want to give you a little demonstration. It is too new, so I don't even have a full-blown demonstration of that, but at least enough to get you comfortable with it, because there's not a whole lot of documentation on that. So you are definitely in for a treat. I'm going to give you like latest and the greatest information. Some of it just came out yesterday. So, sit tight. We're going to have some fun. All right. So this is similar to what I just said before, because there's the agent and then there's the Copilot, the studio building the custom agent. But this kind of gives you that full breadth comparison. Because way on the left side, you've got, yes, the agent builder, but that's absolutely the no-code way, using Microsoft 365 Copilot in the Biz Apps chat. And I'll demonstrate all of that to you, so no worries. But the Copilot Studio is right in that between. And it's a very strong section in between, because you really have to have a solid, compelling reason to switch over to the right side, because that's pure developer. That's like super advanced. And it's actually outside the scope of this session, because I would have to do like a half-day workshop for that. But at least I want to give you a little bit of idea on that, is that when you start to do it from the code first standpoint, you go all the way to the right. Like that's when you're actually going ahead and doing it, inside the Visual Studio. You're going ahead and, creating it with the advanced building of Copilots. See, my mind is still calling chatbots. And you need to also find a data storage location. So for example, if you've got files and things like that, well, then you're going to have to put it in blob storage. Like that's the right side is the big extreme. But like the intermediate to advanced is right in between Copilot Studio, and that's the meat and potatoes of today's session. Now, in addition to just focusing on the Copilot Studio, like right in between, you've got options. So in Copilot Studio, you can make it very simple, and I'll demonstrate some of that to you, but just based on the retrieval process. And the retrieval process uses your existing knowledge. Like there's actually a section called Knowledge in Copilot Studio, and that's the retrieval process. Like use the knowledge you already have. Examples, you could already have some great documents for Word or Excel spreadsheets, PDF files. That you upload to the knowledge inside the Copilot Studio. That's one way. Second way is go ahead and leverage existing knowledge that you might have in Dataverse or SharePoint lists or SharePoint document libraries. Like that's the existing one. Then in between is a very task oriented. That is where you start going and creating your actions. Actions is a very specific process where if your agent has been asked a very specific question, let's trigger those actions, let the Copilot, the custom Copilot that you build, get you the information and let the conversation continue. Like that's the middle section of it. But now there's also the enhancement of autonomous to basically operate independently and also dynamically. The neat thing about this autonomous is that it is very AI generated. In fact, there's a toggle switch that we will have to turn on, which I'll show you in a minute. But this is very important because I'm already sensing that some of you have your wheels turning. It's like, Daniel, if this is autonomous and it runs by itself based on some triggers, well, there's already Power Automate, and that functions that way. So what's the difference? If you're thinking you're on the right track, like you need to think that way. And here's a small, quick answer, but it is the answer I've also reached from Microsoft, is that Power Automate, especially in cloud flows, desktop flows, whatever, that is a very specific trigger, very specific actions. And Power Automate is also for large, processing. Like you have large flows to run, you have large triggers which are coming in, large number of triggers coming in. Like that. That's the Power Automate side. Now the autonomous piece, even though it might sense like it's similar, it is very AI driven, and it is also for very specific reasons. Like you've got an example I'll show you is you've got an email coming in with the subject and an attachment. Now we need to use AI to process that data for us, and we go and extract that data, which AI, we go and retrieve the data, which AI has extracted it, and then we do the next stuff. Like we have no control, we don't want to spend too much time massaging the data. We want AI to handle that piece. So this is where autonomous is right now, and these are the clear distinctions between the cloud and the autonomous piece on that side. But when it comes to building up the co-pilots as well, specifically the agent, it can be done by a lot of people and across many platforms. So, on the left side, you see there's these, large departments, finance, HR, marketing, legal departments, the huge ones. But then it can also be supplied, be leveraged by other departments for based on retail in the department, sales, suppliers. A whole bunch of options are available for each of these, and there's use cases for each and every one of them. In addition to this, there is also a huge footprint of Copilot Studio. And I love this slide deck that Microsoft actually provided because not only is there a global footprint, there is also a large number of languages, and it is constantly growing. So if you look on the bottom left, you see that there's 22 datas. 10 of them are specific, already have the generative AI in it. And the cloud for this section is now ready for commercial, GCC, and GCC High. And then also on the right side, it is regulatory compliance from privacy standpoint. And there's quite a few industries that are already using it. Now, in addition to this, I also like this slide very much. So just to give you an overview, on the top, you will see that it says Copilot, and the Copilot is Studio is the black text. That's the one for specifically in the Copilot for Microsoft 365. Again, low code altogether. Now, if you want to go and take an extension, which is using Copilot Studio, then that's that bluish colored text. So now take a look at this table. On the first row, you see intuitive user interface, like intuitive UX. If you start to see that row, everything from visual canvas, low code design, pro code views, so on and so forth, all of them can already be done on the Microsoft 365 side, the completely no code side. But if you want to start, leveraging natural language to build other more enhancements and bells and whistles, well, then you got to extend that into the Copilot Studio side. And it is a lot more bells and whistles from the Copilot Studio side. Like for example, go 3 rows below, conversation orchestration. That is 100% Copilot Studio. So if you want to leverage any of this, like multi-turn conversations, going in and putting in specific logic, specific for variables, if you want to escalate that to a live agent using multiple LLMs, large language models, and things like that, well, that's purely Copilot Studio side. So love this slide deck over here specifically because it gives you a one overview of when to use what. And it also gives you a good overview that, yeah, Copilot by itself, the Microsoft 365 side, does provide a lot out of the box already. So before I invest time in making this, I want to go and take a look at it. All right, so I want to switch gears a little bit and start focusing on some terminologies I want you to be familiar with, because you're going to hear these things again and again because you're living in that era of Copilot. So generative AI is the terminology which is basically it describes the AI models that can produce a human-like content in the form of text, images, code, and other types of media based on the user prompt. Prompt is what prompted the Copilot to actually generate the answer for you. So generative AI is another one of them, is key thing, generative AI. Remember that it is not us building the AI. We are leveraging the AI which is there and already available to generate specific answers for that. That's the term generative AI. Here are some very important terminologies that you need to be familiar with, and I'll hit you some big ones. On the top, Copilot, we've heard enough of that. Generative AI, we just talked about it, so you're familiar with it. But the other two, I want you to be familiar with. LLM, large language models. And you will hear things like this ChatGPT. There used to be 3, 3.5, 4, and now there is a 4.0 or the 4. It's the 4.0, and constantly growing. Like these are large language models. Somebody has invested time in building these models so that if we go and leverage the models based on our ask, that model can generate the information, generate your data, and provide us that information. Building these large language models is a big deal. Not everybody goes and builds that, and it takes a lot of money, a lot of resources to do that. So that's why we usually leverage an LLM. We don't actually go and build our own LLM, large language models. All right, and then the last one I want to show over here is the RAG model. So you will hear, and if you start attending some of these Copilot Studio type of sessions, you will hear Microsoft and talking about that, saying that, oh yeah, we use the RAG model for LLM based on a 4.0 or 4.0. Well, now you know what that means. Is the RAG model is retrieval augmented generation. That is basically its process. Like Copilot Studio uses that process to retrieve this data, which is already massaged, already augmented, and generated by a LLM, which in our case can be anywhere from 4 to 4.0. So understand these important ones: generative AI, large language models, and RAG models. If you get this, you are already on a much better shape by understanding conversations, like the discussions and the sessions that Microsoft have. So now that I've kind of got you clear with overall, what I want to talk about is some of these types of conversations that happen. So I want to focus clearly on a few types: business to consumer and business to business, because these are the two ones that I'm actually building right now, use cases in for businesses outside, for customers. Somebody had a question? All right, go. And if you have questions, put in the chat, or we can always, answer them at the end. So I want to start with this first answer: is the business to the consumer, and I've got some examples over here. So, for example, customer support will go and say, like, how do I ask general questions like, how do I go ahead and return a product? Like, what is the laptop model that you may have? Or I am specifically looking for a store of your company based on this location. Like, this is basically an enhanced version of FAQ. That's basically what it is. However, it is whoever is the business side of it, which has all this FAQ type of knowledge, you are consuming or having a conversation based on a consumer. So it's more like a one person to a business. So many a times the Copilot agents that you might build may fall under this category. And several internal agents that you will build in your company fall into this category. And several of you must have built it over there already for a company. Replacing FAQs with Copilot's agent discussions is a very common ask. So that's the first scenario. Second scenario is the business to business. That is specifically you going ahead and saying, look, I am part of a business, and as an example in the lab, project management, I need to know what is the status of this existing project. Now, you are again, as a business, going ahead and checking with a business system in the back end about getting some information. So that's like the project environment section. Supplier interaction is another one of them. Like, you are a business person who is waiting for a purchase that you made. Now you're going and asking that the vendor, who's another business, hey, what is the status of my latest, component that I purchased? Next questions come up is an order number, and that order number is referenced against, with an AI generation in the back end. Like, those are the type of things. So this is another big example. Now, this one usually leverages Copilot Studio more when you start to get into the intermediate section for many reasons. Big one is authentication, because sometimes you as a one business person, when you ask a question, it will need to authenticate you into another service in the back end. So this section over here from business to business is where it starts to become an intermediate level. So something to keep in mind. However, now with the ability of Copilot and us able to make the Copilot Studio directly inside it, you can go ahead and have a combination. So way on the left side is an example of an employee request. Quickly find out, how do I go ahead and connect to a corporate network? More again, like on the border side of FAQs, but on the right side, there's another one, like send me a list of pending expenses for this week. Well, that is using SAP, like the SAP section. That is also going ahead and having like a user to a business level or a business to a business level. But this section where it is still a single person, but you need to go and talk to another business side of it using completely as low code may. That's where you can start to leverage your Copilot Studio, the Microsoft 365 Copilot as well. And there's some flexibility already available right now, and more updates to come on that. So again, these are the two big ones: business to consumer, business to business. But now with the flexibility of Copilot, you can do a little bit of merging and blending. However, there is some limitations over here. So here is another examples that I want to show you: business to employee ones. IT services is a big one. Product information is another one, and then HR resources. Those are some examples that I've shown you. On the bottom, you can get ideas. Like, see on the IT services on the left, it is a combination of ServiceNow approval process and then Azure DevOps happening. Things such as, I want to go ahead and deploy the solution, or go ahead and request something. Well, the request goes through ServiceNow. It needs an approval, and then based on the tasks and everything, it goes into an Azure DevOps site. So that's one extreme. On the right side, you've got Workday, you've got SAP. That is HR stuff. So you can go ahead and leverage stuff over there as well. Onboarding process, another one. Going ahead and getting approvals for purchases and things like that. Other extreme side. So just wanted to show you some examples over here. All right. So what I want to do now is, done with the slides for a while. Let's jump into a few demo type of scenarios, which I want to show you. So I will switch gears a little bit and start with this, from a consumer to a business side, absolutely no code technique. And this is still fairly new. It had only has been started to be announced this less than a year ago. But this is the flexibility. So it's, you're using your existing Microsoft 365 Copilot, which means, yes, you need to have a Microsoft 365 Copilot license for this. However, inside, once you have this flexibility and once the feature has lit up in your tenant, when you come to this Copilot piece over here on directly from the browser side, you should start to see this new flexibility on the right, the create an agent. If you don't, just wait for a while, and if you really don't, reach out to your IT people because they, and also a big one is you may not have the Microsoft 365 license. So if you don't see this Copilot icon over here, that means that you actually don't have that license at all, right? So you don't have the license at all, and then if you do, it's just a matter of time where it'll start to show up. That's what it is right over here. All right. On the right side, you might already have initially was get Copilot agents. So when you clicked on the get Copilot agents, it would take you to this one section where you can go and get your existing Copilots. However, now you can go ahead and create your own Copilots as well. So you select this, create an agent, and this pop-up window comes up. And you can start talking to it based on natural language to create your custom Copilots. And there's you get basically description, you're going and telling it what the name is. So I'll give you an example, all right? So right over here, I'm going to say my agent name is ProPilot, all right? And if I go and just say that, agent name is ProPilot, watch on the top left, it'll immediately change that name. What used to be my Copilot agent, it is going to go and rename that into, your ProPilot name. It'll actually, let me try to do that again. So the agent name is, let me actually restart that, just to make sure we are starting fresh. Okay. You would say best practices. Okay, so this agent is going to be used to gather information about, say, Lego. Lego. The agent name will be ProPilot, right? Start having a natural conversation with it. It starts to go ahead and get some information, and it'll start to take all this name. So watch, when I just said the agent name will be ProPilot, check out on the top left, right over there. It automatically went ahead and saved me a whole bunch of clicks, and now the ProPilot name just changed it right there. It also did a few things. It took a really good, stab at what we were doing, and it says like on the right side, it's already giving you some information. Like, okay, instead of users going ahead and having a conversation, let me also make it easy, one step easy, by giving you these clicks. So these button options over here, you are only allowed 6 right now, and then you've got the options to change them or remove them. So you can have all of these conversations, and you can tell it what it should and should not do. And if once it is good, it will automatically switch over into the configuration side. So everything that you've said over here on the description does translate over into the configuration in the back end. So you've got, description over here. It'll go ahead and get some instructions. But now you've got the flexibility to go ahead and actually add the knowledge. Knowledge, as the name suggests, is existing knowledge that you already have. That existing knowledge could be documentation that you have, Word documentations, PDF, those are the type of things, or knowledge that you already have in the data source. Big one over here is SharePoint, because remember, you're doing this on the Microsoft 365 side on a completely no-code basis. The biggest content management source for 365 is SharePoint. So over here, you can go ahead and do just that. Now, there's some neat things. If you go and add your URL, I'll give you a little tip. Let me open up another tab just to give an example. I'll come here, I'll go into my SharePoint site. I'm going to grab a very specific one. Here's my important one that I use a lot, projects SharePoint site, right? So I'm going to come in and I'm going to go ahead and grab that URL, come back over here. And if I go ahead and paste it, it will go ahead and automatically take that URL and put it at that site level. However, you can do something which is pretty neat that caught my attention immediately. So check this out. If I do it browse, now when I hit this pop-up window comes up, and that projects is the exact same site that I had, right? Same type of sites, right? The projects. If I go and click on that, but now you can drill down to a document library level. And if you're coming in new and you're seeing this, great. You say, okay, I can go down directly to my document library level. However, if you're coming in from an earlier Copilot Studio or Power Virtual Agent site, this should blow your mind, because to achieve this previously, we had to go ahead and set up an Azure app registration, which needed the IT department to go and do that. Then you needed to know how to make a REST API connection to that library. You needed to have the URL, making sure you use the Azure app registration secret key and everything. And it took a lot of work to do all of this. And the authentication was also another whole set of work in the back end. But what Microsoft did over here was honestly common sense. They said that we are already inside the Copilot piece of Microsoft 365, which means people are already authenticated inside. And that way they can only see what they have access to. So they can go and do these type of things. So if in my case, I went ahead and selected this receipts, like if I go outside one more page, I have a folder which I have hundreds and hundreds of receipts. So I can just use my Copilot to go ahead and leverage this receipt section. And it also has metadata, like it has documentation, but it also has metadata. So I can go and grab any of this information. Now I need to pause over here and give you this one important thing. My receipts over here, they show up as PDF files. However, these PDF files was what I had scanned with my OneDrive app and then uploaded that to my specific documentation library over here. Those PDFs cannot be rendered or spoken or directly used. The PDFs need to be structured data, like actual text. However, in this case, I still have metadata which I can go and grab. So it works really well on that side. But again, when I saw this come out, I was a happy man because I just noticed that I can no longer need all that additional work that I have to do in the back end just to make this piece working over here. So that is like, for example, I'll come back one step outside. I'll go and select my receipts. I'll go and select that. And now you will actually get a custom one level over here, right there on the browse level. Grab it. And then I select it. You will have the receipts level. And so that is one piece over here, going ahead and getting it directly down to that level. And I think I saw a hand go up. I'll pause and see. Does anybody have a question right now, or did it drop? Nope, the question dropped. See, so right over here, there is the the site and all the information coming in. These are reference sites. And since I clicked multiple times, it came through over here. This is what I was talking about, the starter prompt. So you see the 6 of them that came up automatically. That's the one that I selected. I mean, that's the one that I gave it a conversation. I automatically put this over here. You've got full flexibility to remove something, but you can only keep it at 6 levels. So for example, in my case, I'm looking more for information about the product and events. I'm not looking for building tips. So this one over here, I'll go ahead and put that in the trash, and boom, that is gone. So makes it that easier over here. So I'm going to actually just X out of this one because I've got some finished ones ready. There is the bot for bricks. That's the one that I've already created. Let's go and take a look at that agent. Right now, if you have an agent over here, you can go ahead, click on the pin, and it'll go ahead and take that up over there. If you don't like it, you can unpin it and it brings it down. What gets confusing is how the heck do I edit this guy? Because if I hit on the ellipses, there's only an uninstall. So right now, what you have to do is go back and click on an agent, click on that drop down, and now you'll see view all agents. And then we can go and take a look at the bot for bricks. And this is basically it. I've gone in here and given a very simple instruction. In my bot for bricks area, I've gone ahead and said that I want you to use these type of websites, and this is my bot. So if I now come in, again, in my area over here, and I go and say, find me information about Lego part number 3031, all right? That's basically, I said, find me information about Lego part number 3031. Now, not everybody knows what the Lego part number is. There's 30, there's 3031, but it is going ahead and referencing directly through that Copilot, the URLs that I've put in and grabbed this type of information. That 3031 is actually a 4x4 Lego plate. It's half done, and it gets me all of this information over there. Now, this information would not be available unless you are a Lego company in your own tenant. So it really helps to go ahead and provide this information directly to your own bots over here. So this is for external type of content system. If I now go into the right, okay, here over there, Microsoft Products Agent. Let's go take a look at that one because I want to show you an example of that. Here, if I go take a look at my bot here, I actually have the receipts library, but I've also got this documentation. So if I click on it, it directly takes me into this document library in my SharePoint site. Important things I've done over here is I've always collected these license informations about Microsoft. When you go to the Microsoft help guides and Microsoft documentations, they usually give you this big information about all the licensing. So like the last one that I just pulled was Dynamics 365 licensing guide. There's a licensing guide for Microsoft 365. Like these are all structured. Let me rephrase that. These are all, documentations which actually have good text in it. This is not like a screenshot which I took from my phone. Like this is good text, and this is the type of text that does get indexed in the SharePoint side as well. So this is all good stuff. So now if I go into my Copilot Studio, specifically in my Microsoft 365 side, I've switched over to the Microsoft 365. Here, I go ahead and say stuff like, tell me, zoom in so we can all see what's going on. Latest information about, let's say, instead of Dynamics 365, I'll say D365. So it is thinking, it's looking for the latest information, and it went ahead and grabbed all of this, but it's specifically telling me that it's all coming in from that documentation site, and then links will be provided and all of that. But again, this information is coming very specifically to your documentation library. And that's important for many use cases. Like I might have my own customized licensing information because my third-party vendor went in and gave us that license. So I can't trust the web content for this one because our licensing can be a little different. So these type of scenarios where you just already have existing content, it is in your SharePoint, or you have documentation. Well, in this case, it is in your SharePoint. Then it could be SharePoint down to document libraries, and this will respect authentication. You can go and leverage this type of Copilot, and this is pretty good too. I mean, it's 100% no code, and it does the fantastic thing that it goes ahead and puts it directly into your Microsoft 365, into your browser level chat. And the only catch over here is that the first time you go ahead and create it, like I'll go back to creating the bot, creating over here. The first time you go ahead and create it, you will have to click on this share, and it will give you this link. You need to give this link to everybody who's going to be using this bot, either over here, or you can paste it inside Teams, wherever. You can go ahead and do that. And when you're doing that, you can also make sure who all are people going to use it. You can do it that way. Give it to them in their company in a link, so that once they go ahead and click on it, they will start to see that exact same bot on their site. So that's just one additional step on that piece. But it's easy, simple, nothing difficult on this side. What I want to do is also switch gears now, because this is 100% no code. What I want to do is go into that intermediate level that can transition over from intermediate to advanced. So here is that scenario now where you can go ahead and create complete customization of building your own Copilot. Now this is where it gets a little interesting, because say in this case, I need to go ahead and make a SharePoint connection. Well, now I need to go through, because I don't know who is going to be accessing it. So I need to go and factor in authentication, and that authentication is some lot of extra work on this. I've actually done full videos on step-by-step creating Entra ID authentication, like a whole section by itself. But you still have that same flexibility. You go ahead and grab your SharePoint site. You can go ahead and add that as a knowledge. Because you've got that SharePoint over here, you can go ahead and get Dataverse, you can go ahead and put in the files, like same type of flexibility, but you've got more options, and you also extend your audience a little bit. However, in this case now, you've got the flexibility to go ahead and use topics. This topic is a very structured type of a conversation that you're going to build. So there are all these topics there out of the box, but you can go ahead and create more based on what the trigger is, and really create some solid customizations. Interesting thing about topics is when you start to go in and create your own topic, it's like a workflow process. You have options over here inside the message pieces to really customize the type of answers you want to receive. For example, you can go ahead and embed an entire form in your conversation piece over here. Or you can also go ahead and put in images, standard embed images. So if you want your conversation information that is coming in a lot more cleaner design type of a thing, then this is the place that you have to go through, and it makes it a lot more easier. Now, I'll have to call one thing out from this side is that when you're going ahead and putting this agent externally, but your data is internal, it will go through a one-step authentication section. So if I go back over here now, and let me grab one, because it would be nice if I can actually show it to you. My go to the demo site is blocked right now. Let me jump to another one, see if I can show it to you. For some reason, that was grayed out. But if I come back here to the prod one, I should be able to switch over and show you another example. Prod, let's go to my agents. Yeah, this one should be able to. Yeah, go to the demo site. Now this is the receipts. Now this is the example over here is that receipts that I showed you in my internal SharePoint site, which we didn't have any authentication when we built it to Copilot. This is another example. See, it's a full-blown bot that I've built, sorry, an agent that I've built, but I can go ahead and access this either internally or externally. So if I go now and click on the go to website, this is the type of website that I can actually create. And it is saying, the first thing it's asking me is that you will need to sign in. So I click on the log on, and then it gives me this code, which I go and copy it over here, come back in, paste it, and it goes ahead and does that verification. Like it'll run through the authentication pieces. And now the bot actually comes in and have the conversation, and then you can add stuff and ask questions tied to that internal information. This, I wanted to demonstrate that to you because this gives you the flexibility to even add bots for public agents for public facing websites. And depending on where your data source is, you can have this authentication step over here. So this definitely is a huge upgrade from the internal Microsoft 365 Copilot because you can customize the way the bot works, conversations, specifically adding topics, but you can also extend it into an external section, piece on the side from external public facing website type of scenario. All right. The latest information that I want to show you is the ability to, and I need to switch back to my development environment right here, is the autonomous piece. The one that I gave you a quick overview, like if you have a confusion between the when to use autonomous versus Power Automate. Autonomous is, generative AI specifically, and let AI do that versus Power Automate can be more high volume churning type of a process. So I actually have an agent I just went and created not too long ago. And in my agent, I actually started creating these triggers. This trigger is the place is what should automatically trigger this autonomous agent functionality. Now, there's not a whole lot of documentation on this yet, and Microsoft, is doing because they just announced that recently in the Ignite yesterday. But what I wanted to do was start to show you some stuff. So when you go and create this trigger, what you are basically doing is going and saying, what is the trigger? And I'll give you an example. The trigger is, in my scenario, I have an incoming email with a very specific type of a subject and a very specific thing, a requirement that it has to have an attachment. You can even bring that down into like this needs to be coming in from a specific subfolder that you may have. Like that's just my scenario, all right? You can do that for other things because you see the triggers that you see over here are the ones that you're comfortable with. OneDrive, new file is created. In SharePoint, new item is added. New message is posted on the channel. Like these are all the the quick and easy ones. But you have all these other triggers available. These triggers look and feel very similar to your Power Automate flows. Again, same concept over here. Because why? It does become a Power Automate flow. So I've actually shown you this example over here. I went and created this trigger. But when you click on it, it directly takes you to Power Automate. And that is the key information that I wanted to show you because when I started to, I already through my MVP got early information about this autonomous piece coming in. That's when I actually asked them the question about what's the difference between autonomous and Power Automate, and they gave a really good description on that. But what I learned when I finally got the access is that this trigger, yes, it does go ahead and get created over here, but it actually is a flow which is running a Power Automate cloud flow that is running. So it's here now. Once you come in, you've got the trigger, but then you've got this additional step that automatically has because based on all the trigger that is there, and then any additional steps that you can go ahead and add, it will go ahead and take all that information and then ingest it using a large language model, and then the generative AI will send you that information however you process it. You can go ahead and add some predefined steps and things like that. What I want to show you is just an example of some of the examples. Basically, it's not really processing anything, but how the heck does this thing work? So you already saw the trigger, okay? An email that is coming in. It is coming in from a very specific email address because that's what I've put in. Yes, it includes attachments. It should also have a subject filter called receipts, and it is sitting in my main inbox folder. So, excuse me, when something like this runs, now in your activity piece, you can actually see this type of activity going on. So if I go and click on that, it is actually saying that, hey, this was the activity that happened based on your information. So watch this. If I go back now to my overview, and if I go and take a look at my triggers, you see that little icon over here. If I go and click on it, it actually has examples where I can go and do some testing. So I've got this one example where I just created that before this example here. If I click on this start testing, it's basically repeating everything that it has done, but it does it in this really nice activity map section. On the right hand side over here, if you go and take a look at it, this is where you can go and see conversation. So what is it that happened? Well, it went ahead and actually triggered the flow that you created, because it got the autonomous Copilot got triggered based on your criteria. And here is the next sections of the map. So in my case, it was basically just information going on over here. The email came through, and then I'm not sure, maybe I should give you another example. Come back here. Let's go and grab another example. Start testing it. It'll go ahead and start triggering that piece. Some reason it is not starting it, because it should go ahead and say that the session has started, but some activity will happen. Like the next steps over here is it will go ahead and take your information and run it by its knowledge. Then in the knowledge, it will go ahead and check to see the inbox that has come in. What are you doing? Like you're going in and taking a look at the attachment. Let me take the information from the attachment, run that by my knowledge using the generative AI, and then the large language model will go ahead and actually send us information and any customized actions that you may add. If you remember, it's only 2 actions over here, but this guy does all of that stuff. Why? Because when you go and take a look at your flow piece, I mean your agent piece, when you created it, your overview, you've got a combination of knowledge. You've already got knowledge, which it will, the agent will go and reference, and then you've got these triggers. So all of this magic kind of happens in the back end, and it really works well. Let me see if I already got a demo ready. Yeah, actually, I got one. I'll go ahead and send this receipt again. So an email has been sent to that inbox. Now what we can do is actually come back and do 2 things. You can actually go and take a look at that flow piece itself, just to watch to see, like, okay, this was the test that I did. We're waiting basically to see what it is. And you see on the top right, it actually uses the connection references, which is a reference to a connection. It's only to my Outlook inbox, and then the Copilot Studio, which is currently in preview. So we are waiting to see what activity is happening, and we are still waiting for that email to come in my inbox section. So sometimes you have to wait for a while. We should actually see that email slide any section. You will see it over here. You will also see it in your Copilot agent side. Like when you click on this piece, you will start to see another one of this happening just a few seconds over here. So like you get to see all of this activity working close together. But this is purely autonomous because we're not having a conversation. It is getting triggered in the back end, but over here, it uses the generative AI piece on that side. So it's very, very important. And we'll just give it 1 more minute because it'd be fun if this thing actually, the email comes in and we see some activity. Did the email come through? Let me just quickly check. Yeah, it did come through over here. So we should see it trigger any second. Come on, demo gods. You can do it. And let me go back here, refresh that. Oh, actually it did. See, this one just came through. So if I click on that one, we go ahead and take a look at, if we click on automate the browser, it goes directly there. But if I click on the start testing piece, for some reason, this guy is actually not working because he would actually go through telling us what's this conversation that's happening. But it would actually just show us the concept is that it's actually taking in the information and then generating it, and running it by our knowledge first. It'll go and make sure that do you have any existing knowledge uploaded, or are there knowledge just coming from a SharePoint side? Like it goes through all of that activity, and then it'll make an assessment based on the actual discussion over here. Like it'll make an assessment piece right there based on email coming in, and then it'll go and show this piece also happening. So it's see 2 checks have happened here. Just for some reason on this side, we are not seeing that activity. It'll actually show the session has started, but it shows you some activity going on. Let me just try one last thing, and then if it doesn't work, that's fine. We'll jump out. All right, see, here's one of the examples. It did start. Next thing it is saying that, okay, I'm going to go ahead and verify that against your knowledge sources. Did the information come in get run by our knowledge sources? This is the generative AI piece that happens in the inside in the back end. You don't have to train it. I mean, you don't have to add any sub actions in your flow that here's the attachment. Now I want you to go and do this AI stuff. No, it automatically does it for you in a very autonomous way based on the triggers that you put in. The only thing is right now, this is currently, excuse me, in preview. So what you do have to do is for that specific Copilot section, you got to make sure that, actually it's on the outside piece. So yeah, for this Copilot, you just got to make sure that your generative AI piece is actually turned on. So if I go and take a look at my settings, go into the generative AI, you need to have that one turned on. So if you want to start playing and testing with this autonomous one, this generative AI piece needs to be turned on, because by default, it'll be at the classic. You need to go and turn this on, and only then can you start building these autonomous agents, which can be triggered based on all of them. So I want to now switch gears and in the end, just talk a little bit about, we'll go to this slide. Yeah, actually, this is basically an overview of how this works. It's also a good slide to talk about that. The trigger that happens autonomously, in our case, whatever the trigger was, but you've got all of this orchestration that happens in the back end, based on the, what did the trigger occur, occur. In our case, it was based on an email, but it could be also based on a new item that is added. Then after that, do we go ahead and process that using any of the agents that you already created or any of the flows that we have? It is going ahead and referencing, it is going ahead and referencing any of the existing data. Like there's a lot of activity that actually happens in the back end, but this is all the process for the autonomous piece and also your Copilot Studio in the conversation. But this is one of those big things that happen. Autonomous one, I showed you what it was, showed you the dynamic agent. This is the big one. This was actually announced yesterday, that we've been working with these type of managed pack licenses. So it's a tenant wide pack. You can have 225,000 messages per month or purchasing that. However, very soon, which is starting December 1, you can go with a metered pay as you go. The concept of pay as you go is not new. It is available already. We've done pay as you go for robotic process automation bots on the desktop. So that concept is not new. But over here, the only thing is that it can, the per message that you go and add or get from the Copilot discussion, it is just 1 cent. So that's how the pay as you go, gets billed based on that conversation. And then here's the other piece. I want to end with this one is that if for some reason, you are just not happy with or Copilot Studio with all its ability to create your own topics or to go ahead and leverage your own knowledge or add some knowledge. In spite of all of that, if you don't want to do it, you can still leverage your existing Azure AI, work that you've done, but then bring that back into Copilot, just reference that back into Copilot from a front end standpoint. It gets a lot easier that way, or it actually gets a lot more affordable too. So on the right side, Azure AI, building your custom agents is now going to be tied into the Azure AI Foundry, and it can scale very high directly with the Azure AI. But what it helps is over there, if you've gone ahead and built it, you've got the way to go ahead and bring that back directly into the Copilot Studio as well. Also, you can go ahead and leverage any of the AI customization work that you might have done, because you might have created very specific AI, Azure AI type of search, or you might have a whole bunch of AI models that you may create where these models are going ahead and processing certain information. All of that must have been built on, will have to be built on the Azure AI side. If you've got that, you can leverage that into the Copilot Studio as well. You now no longer, like if you've done any additional modeling or any of the customized AI search in the Azure AI Foundry, doesn't mean that you have to build a custom AI. You can use all that work you've done on the AI Foundry side and then bring that back into the Copilot Studio as well. This was one of the things that they announced at Ignite, just to make the whole process a lot more simpler and easier on that side. So put that over here, and we are at a very good time. Only got 1 minute left. Again, this was just an overview. But what I wanted to specifically tell you was that there's 3 different types again. There is the absolute no code, which is still not bad right now. Remember that example that I said, if you want to use SharePoint, you don't have to create an Azure Entra ID app registration anymore. So much more easier. But if you still have to do customization, you can do that on the Copilot Studio side. And there needs to be a really good, compelling reason to go over into building the Azure AI Copilot, because over there, a lot of work needs to be done by yourself, including figuring out where data needs to be saved. Do I need Azure Blob Storage to put information, and all of that other stuff? So think about it. When you start getting the developer side, what's the compelling reason? Because a lot of it can be done on the Copilot Studio side. And if you've got some AI models already in the Azure AI Foundry, it doesn't mean that you need to create a custom AI. You can now go and pull that one back into the Copilot Studio as well. So thank you for your time. Hopefully I give you a slight headache. Hopefully you've got some enough information to start playing with. Go check out that Microsoft 365 Copilot one. It's pretty neat. Helps you to create some custom agents. I did a workshop on that just last week. And while I was there, one of the gals actually went and built one, and we were, geeking out together. The point being is it literally is that fast. And she just built her own knowledge base internally. So it was pretty neat how she went and did that on the fly while we were still talking about it. It's easier, completely no code. Cool. Questions, thoughts, concerns?
This is amazing. I thought I saw a hand up. I think Mark had a hand up. Mark, if you have a question, you can unmute yourself. You can speak the question or put it on the chat. We still have, I think we can go over a few more minutes if folks have questions. I think this was great, Daniel, especially including like something very fresh onto the demo. I'm glad we got you scheduled for today. Then we got NDA down for some of the new stuff, so that was great.
Yeah.
So if folks
this was just announced yesterday.
Yeah, that is a fresh one. Let's see. There is a question here. Any recommendations on best practices on how this could be managed within different environments? I think ALM approach for copilots / agents, I guess.
Yeah. So one of the neat things, and I'll show you quickly, because the updated Power Platform Admin Center came at a really good time too. So this is my tenant. Let me show you. Because I had similar questions for managing Copilot Studio and just the Copilot piece inside the Power Platform. So this is what I was talking about. This just started coming out from the Ignite, and people's tenants have started lighting it up. I actually was a private preview of this one, so I had access to this way before, and man, it was so difficult to keep my mouth shut because this is awesome. But now that they announced at Ignite, I can actually show you this. So in this piece over here, there's a whole separate section to govern your Copilot. Part of that governance piece is there's a whole section only on Copilot Studio. So when you go into the Copilot Studio section, you can actually see how many of these are being, generative actions are going on, which environments it is. If I go and click on it, that's just the learning document. If I go and take a look at it over here, it gives me an overview of how many generative actions I have. We can break it down into weekly, daily, but like this information, we did not have this before of finding out where all is my Microsoft 365 Copilot being used? So that's one thing. Other thing is you can go ahead and put in some security ones specifically. That's not the one. And I apologize, I myself am getting a little in the Copilot Studio. Right here, I can actually go ahead and put in more governance pieces on where I should and should not allow this. Like which environments can I go ahead and turn it on? Which environments I actually do want to allow? Like you can go ahead and do that at the environment level as well. Like clicking on it and allowing things going on. So I actually urge you to get comfortable with this because the backend admin, the Power Platform Admin Center or PPAC has just grown by such a large level, purely focusing on more granular level permissions at environment level. But the big one, in my opinion, was the flexibility now to give more governance on the Copilot side. And you and I know that the Copilot Studio is a huge thing. Like it is huge. We can go ahead and start putting in like the Copilot Studio. If you're, even if you go ahead and create the out of the box Microsoft 365 Copilot, it is still actually being saved right now in your default environment. Like we just can't see it, but in the back end, it's hidden. It's in the default environment. One of the things they're going to do is actually, you'll give the flexibility to move it somewhere else, just like how SharePoint workflows and SharePoint forms are. Initially, there was only the default environment, but then they gave you the flexibility to move that using PowerShell. I'm sure they'll do something similar over here, but you still can govern it over here on this side, putting in guardrails on what you want to allow, like connections that you want to allow, not allow, all of this. And then even if you're not ready to do that later on, at least you have full visibility of what's going on, like in your tenant, because even that was something we didn't have before. So play around with this new admin. Moment it turns on in your environment, you can always toggle it on, you can always toggle it off. You've got flexibility to do that. This is what gives you the governance piece.
Yeah, we have a comment here from Yadi. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Message is, I'm new to PP governance, so sorry for the silly questions. The updated Power Platform, what is PPAC? Is it the admin
Power
center, I
Platform
believe?
Admin Center, PPAC,
Yeah.
Power Platform Admin
Will
Center.
replace COE. I think some of the I think that would be the plan. I don't know if it will fully replace COE and some of the admin tools that are available there. As you know, COE has collaboration from the community as well.
Yeah.
But eventually, features that get exposed through COE get incorporated into the admin center. So I believe that's what we see here with actually a little bit extra on, the Copilot Studio features for admin work. But this is awesome. I saw the announcement, but I didn't have a chance to explore it much. Yeah, there is a lot, and hopefully in either the next lesson or then the one after, we'll look at some of the additional announcements from Ignite. As I mentioned, there is the Power Apps Plan Designer, which is really cool, and we're gonna cover it in lesson 6, I believe. But there is another announcement, which is generating agents from Canvas apps. So you are able now to look at a Canvas apps that's being used by your end users, and you can generate an agent off of an existing app. So that is super cool as well. So a lot of stuff. It feels like Christmas Day, but I don't think we have time to cover all of it today. But stay tuned. We're gonna cover some of these new announcements in the following weeks. We are at the halfway point with the mentorship. Next week, I'll be teaching you on copilots that are available within Power Platform. That is copilots in Dataverse, copilots in Power Automate, so on and so forth. We'll be looking at that. I know that next Thursday is Thanksgiving Day in the US, so I may miss some of you. But if you're bored, maybe after lunch you can join us for the lesson. Maybe you grab a piece of turkey and you sit by your computer screen and you follow along. If not, I wish you an awesome Thanksgiving week in the US. It's one of my favorite holidays. there in the USA. Take some time to count the stock for of the things that you need to be thankful for. It's always good to take time for that. My friend Daniel, I'm very thankful for you. So that is my Thanksgiving week ahead of the Thanksgiving wish ahead of the Thanksgiving week. Thank you so much for spending time with us today, donating your time and your expertise. We hope to see you again here in the Zero to Hero Mentorship, and I hope to see you in person in one of those conferences that we do. All right?
Will do. All right, everybody. Enjoy
Take care, my
Thanksgiving.
friend. Bye
Bye.
bye.
Yes, thank you.